Over the past decade, the number of teenagers identifying as transgender has skyrocketed. This is not an organic culture shift. This is all by design. A recent report was released from the Williams Institute showing a generational spike in young people identifying as transgender. In today's video, we're going to take a look at this study and how education, legislation, and other institutions are shaping identity for America's young people, and often it's without parental consent. Hey everyone, I'm Julie Barrett and I'm the founder of Conservative Ladies of America. And in today's video, we're going to dig through a new report and I'm going to take you down the rabbit hole with me. And we are going to connect the dots to show you how all of these different systems, education, policy, lawmaking, and other institutions are contributing to this huge spike in America's youth identifying as transgender. Now, if you've been watching our channel or if you've been following Conservative Ladies for any length of time, you probably know a little bit about my backstory. But if you don't, I will have some links in the description of this video so you can go check it out. But when I lived in Washington State and my children went to Washington's public schools, we encountered numerous circumstances with these gender policies and circumventing parental rights that really created great problems for our children and for our family. And so I've paid a lot of attention to this at an education level and as a policy level. And it's the reason why I personally am so outspoken about these policies and things that are happening in the education system, because I want to sound the alarm so that other parents understand the agenda, they understand what's going on, and they can take steps to protect their children. Now, I want to share with you something that happened over the weekend. We posted on our Conservative Ladies of Washington Facebook page an image from Fox News where children are being taught in a kindergarten classroom to be able to identify 3 or more genders. And it was really astounding to me to watch how many people, so-called conservatives, that commented on this post and said, this isn't happening. Now, let's rewind to the COVID era when all of our children brought home Chromebooks from school and sat in their classrooms at our kitchen tables, in the family room, in the living room, and we as parents watched some of this garbage come out. I actually sent a video. I took a video of my daughter's 7th grade class where they were doing a critical race theory lesson with the wheel of power and oppression. The story was covered by Jason Rantz, which I will link that in the description of the video as well. But this kind of thing was happening to parents across the state of Washington, parents all over the country for that matter. And we had a heightened sense of the garbage that was going on, the indoctrination that was happening in the public school system. Well, now it's 2025 and we've kind of gotten away from the COVID years when we had the lockdowns and the masks and the COVID vaccine mandates and all of the indoctrination that was actually happening in our homes. And many of us just want to get back to business as usual, life as normal. And it's easy to not want to hear and not want to see the things that are going on. As I've been paying attention to legislation and as I've been an activist since 2021, I've had a front row seat to the kinds of policies that are being made in Washington state and many other states, particularly as they pertain to education, parental rights, and LGBTQ indoctrination of America's children. It is very bad. Laws are written very broadly to allow these people who are pushing this LGBTQ agenda, which I want to make clear, it is not every teacher. There are some very good teachers in the public education system who refuse to go along with this agenda. But unfortunately, there's a lot of new teachers coming on board. They're graduating from their left-leaning colleges that are teaching them this stuff. The teachers are actually having to be trained on critical race theory and diversity, equity, and inclusion, such is the law for teachers in Washington state. Many of them, especially the younger ones, are pushing this stuff into the classroom, and many of them have discretion on how far they want to go. So while the example that we showed from Fox News on our Facebook page last night may not be happening in every school district or every classroom, it is happening, and parents need to be aware, and they need to be communicating with the teachers, with the school district, with the school board to find out what the curriculum is, because no one is going to offer it up to you. And if you want to opt your child out, you are going to have to take the initiative to do that. No one's going to come to you and say, do you want to opt out? So it was interesting to read all of these comments this morning as I was preparing to do this video and share this information about this huge spike in the number of young people identifying as transgender, because it is being pushed into the schools as early as kindergarten. And in some states, they're actually trying to push it into pre-K. And you'll hear a lot about universal pre-K. This all plays together. If they have your kids in universal pre-K, they can start this agenda even earlier. And in places like California, New York, Washington State, that is already happening. Pre-K not in Washington, but it is coming. And so parents and citizens really need to be prepared. So I want to show you these numbers with the Washington situation in the back of your mind, and see how this is not happening organically. It is all by design. According to the Williams Institute, 3.3% of US teens ages 13 to 17 now identify as transgender. Teenagers make up more than 25% of the entire transgender population, but they're only 7.7% of the general population. Contrast that with adults age 34 to 64, only 0.42% identify as transgender. It's really difficult with numbers like that to ignore the obvious. Let's take a look at how this is being pushed into our children's lives. Let's start with education. Public schools have really become ground zero for this gender indoctrination and ideology. In California, they have the FAIR Act, which mandates LGBTQ plus history starting in kindergarten. New Jersey requires LGBTQ plus inclusion in social studies and in history. In 2024, Washington State passed a law mandating LGBTQ plus history in public schools. Washington State OSPI also encouraged gender identity lessons in health education. And in 2020, the Washington State Legislature passed a law mandating comprehensive sexual education for K through 12 schools. And this was fully implemented by the 2022-2023 school year. In almost every blue state and in many red states, gender is taught as a spectrum and as a social construct. Pronoun selection are often encouraged and supported, and in many cases, especially in places like Washington, California, Colorado, New York, social transition is supported and is often kept secret from parents. Most of these states have laws that allow the school districts to keep a student's pronouns and gender identity secret from their parents. And in many of these states, they also offer so-called gender affirming care to these students without parental notification or consent. And as I mentioned before, teachers are receiving training about pronouns and about not misgendering students, and they are told to affirm a student's gender identity. It's pretty clear when you dig into these policies that there is a very radical agenda to indoctrinate these children with gender ideology and thinking that they can choose a gender and that gender is a social contract and that gender is a spectrum. Let's take a look at laws that states have passed that are driving the institutional push behind gender identity adoption. In Washington, the LGBTQ Commission was created in 2020 to advise on policy, education, and healthcare. There have been many laws passed to support so-called gender affirming care for minors and to increase access to those services, including cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers, and even housing for children who are seeking so-called gender affirming care. And just last week, Washington's Attorney General Nick Brown joined forces with, I think it was 23 other states to urge the Supreme Court to uphold Colorado's conversion therapy ban, which essentially means that therapists, medical providers have to affirm a child's gender identity, even if it does not align with their biological sex. In Minnesota, they passed the Trans Refuge Law in 2023. This allows the state to take emergency custody of a child so that they can receive gender affirming care if their parents are not helping them do so. Minnesota also elected the first transgender legislator, Representative Lee Fink, who has sponsored key legislation to circumvent parental rights and give children access to these gender affirming care services. And as I mentioned earlier, California has the FAIR Act, which requires LGBTQ plus curriculum and history in the public school system. California also has laws that were passed at the state level that require bathrooms to have all gender access. California also has taxpayer funding available for minor children to access gender affirming care and legal protections for them so that they can access these services. And in the state of New York, they have passed legislation that mandates schools have gender inclusive policies. New York also funds a wide variety of LGBTQ plus youth programs. And like California and Washington, they support so-called gender affirming care for minors without parental consent. Now, these are just 3 examples of many blue states that have passed into law at a state level protections for children to receive so-called gender affirming care, to go by whatever pronouns they want, to socially transition at school without parental consent, and in some cases without even parental notification. It should come as no surprise then that the top 5 states for people who identify as transgender are Minnesota with 1.2%, Oregon with 1.1%, Hawaii also with 1.1%, Washington with 1.1%, and California also with 1.1%. As we've just walked through, all of these states have progressive gender policies, inclusive curricula, and government-funded LGBTQ plus commissions, making them prime examples of institutional influence. It's pretty clear when we take a look at what's happening in the public education system and what is happening at a policy-making level and all of these other institutions that are influencing the education system and communities, as well as state legislatures. This rise in people identifying as transgender is not organic. It is very much engineered. The education systems are teaching it, state laws protect it and promote it, mental health mandates enforce it, and parents all the while are being sidelined and cut completely out of the picture. And ultimately, it is our children who are paying the price because they are being intentionally confused, they are being intentionally misled, and our children deserve the truth and the love and support that parents want to give them to walk through what is very much an awkward stage of life, as I think most of us who have gone through our teen years would all agree. This is a coordinated transformation of how identity is defined, validated, and enforced. And it's up to us, we the people, to protect our children and to demand change. And in order to do that, we've got to be paying attention, and we've got to be willing to speak up and stand up and do everything in our power to protect our children. So even if you don't have children in the school system anymore, as I don't either, it is still up to us to change this, because if we aren't able to fix the system for our children, we will lose our country. I'm going to have links in the description of this video to the Williams Institute report and to some other documentations that you can explore if you want to go further down the rabbit trail on this. Please do be sure to share this video far and wide so that other parents and concerned citizens really have an understanding of what's going on and really how it is all connected. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.